Welcome to another episode of Lawyers for Immigrants with your host, Yifei He, president of the law office of Yifei He, where they are dedicated to helping immigrants and new Americans. In every episode, Yifei interviews attorneys across different practice areas and asks them how they are helping immigrants. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and at www.yifeiheelaw.com. Now here's the host of Lawyers for Immigrants, Yifei He.
Hello everyone, welcome to my show, The Lawyers for Immigrants. My name is Yifei He, and I am the host of this podcast. I'm also an owner of immigration law firm, the law office of Yifei He, PLLC, where we help immigrants and new Americans adjust to life in the U.S. And on this show, as well as every other episode, I interview non-immigration lawyers and ask them how they are helping immigrants. And today, my guest is Ryan Walsh of the law firm of Walsh and Gilad. They're a real estate and landlord-tenant firm located in Queens, New York. So Ryan, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Ryan and I we have our child go to the same school. That's how we met. And we just happen to be lawyers. And Ryan actually started his solo practice several years ago. Is that correct, Ryan?
I've been doing it for a long time, unfortunately. I'm an old man. And yes, our children go to the same school, which is really nice.
Great. So tell me about yourself and what got you into your current area of law.
Essentially, happenstance. I graduated law school and I was bouncing around a little bit, and I got lucky enough to work with somebody who was doing criminal law. He took me under his wing, and I built the real estate practice out of his criminal attorney office. And we were able to just grow that real estate practice from, one person to now 10, which is really nice. Our firm represents buyers, sellers, and lenders throughout New York and New Jersey. We do residential and commercial. And we work with a lot of first-time home buyers, a lot of new immigrants, right, that come into the U.S. They're buying their first homes or co-ops, right, condos. So we work with a lot of people that are just coming to this country, or foreign nationals that want to buy investment properties, right? We work with those as well. Our firm used to be located in Elmhurst, right on Broadway, which was like the epicenter of new immigrants, right? We had 120 languages spoken in the area, and we literally had every type of food, every type of culture that you'd want in like a 5-block radius. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's great. So what exactly do you do that helps immigrants and companies, multinational companies?
Well, for us, we're real estate attorneys, so our job really is to help a buyer or seller shepherd them through the process, right, of buying a property or selling a property. If you're a first-time home buyer, you're an immigrant, or you're someone who's not familiar with the process of buying or selling real estate, you really want to hire an attorney that's really looking after your best interest, right? That's going to protect you. And that's what we try to do. We pride ourselves on trying to be, professionals that really look after the interests of the client. Because, you're buying or selling, a property that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. We really want to make sure that your interests are protected. And a lot of times, there are bad people that will try to take advantage of like someone that just moved to this country, or a new immigrant, or a foreign national that's trying to buy. So, again, we want to make sure that we try to protect the client's interest, which is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories of people being taken advantage of. Like, for example, I've heard stories of people buying something but not having title to it. So can you give us some examples of how or why immigrants should be afraid of, the market right now?
Well, I mean, I think it really comes down to sometimes it's language, right? If they don't speak the language and they're relying on their attorney to translate the documents, because all the documents are in English. If they speak Spanish or Mandarin or some other language, like Russian, they have to depend on the attorney for everything, right? And they got to hope that that deed has their name on it and those documents are correct, and and that's where you can run into a foul where someone is working with the other side, right? So if you have a person who's trying to buy a property and say, for example, the realtor refers the buyer to an attorney, but the realtor is working for the seller, and now that attorney is kind of guiding them in the wrong way or explaining the wrong things or not telling them what's really going on, that's where you can get fraud, right? That's where that fraud can occur, where the other side of the transaction is all in cahoots, right? So what I always tell people is get their referrals from the non-for-profit. Right? I work with Neighborhood Housing Services, which is located in Woodside, and they have vetted out good attorneys, lenders, realtors that are really there to protect that buyer's interest, right, or that person's interest. I'm not saying all realtors are bad, but what happens is, if you have a bad, if you have a lot of people that are doing bad things, then they try to keep everything in house, right? So they try to refer the attorney, the lender, the home inspector, and the buyer thinks that they have a good team, but in reality, those people are all working for the other side, and that's where that fraud again can take place.
Okay. And what kind of instances have you seen of fraud where someone has been taken advantage of? What are the consequences of falling into this trap?
Well, the other day we had an estate that was trying to sell a property. When we went on to ACRIS, which is the database in New York City that shows who owns the properties, we found out that the cousin had actually deeded the property to herself after the death of the family member. So that was fraudulent. So when the estate came to me, they said, "What do we do?" I said, "Well, you have two choices. One, ask your cousin to transfer the property back, or we call the police and we put her in jail and we get the property back, right?" So, you have certain circumstances like that, or again, you have the realtor, the home inspector, the lender, all in cahoots with the seller, and they're selling one property multiple times, right, to four or five buyers, right, with a bad title company that gives title insurance, quote unquote, and then that buyer doesn't own it because there's five people that also own it at the same time, and they're all trying to collect the funds. We had a transaction where we bought a property, we went to sell the property, we represented an investor, and when the buyer's attorney ran the title on our sale, they saw a lien. And we were like, that's surprising because when we bought the property 3 months ago, there was no lien. But what we came to find out was that there's a lady apparently that goes around Brooklyn, and she put 120 liens on homes, right? With the hopes that when someone passes away, their family members, right, will say, "Oh, okay," and pay the lady. Not realizing that she was a bad person. She's a criminal. So we knew that she was a criminal, and we said to her, "You have two choices. Either release the lien or we'll put you in jail." And she released the lien. So, there's a lot of scam artists in real estate, unfortunately, because the price points are very, very high, right? In New York, a one-bedroom, condo is $1 million, right? So these residential homes can go for a lot of money. And if someone also passes away, then, you find people come out of the woodworks for a piece of that home that they may or may not be entitled to.
Right. So how is the real estate market generally in New York other than the price?
Well, right now, unfortunately, mid-April, the interest rates went up. So they went from 2% roughly to 5 to 6%. And that caused a halt on any refinances. So refinances have pretty much stopped here in New York since mid-April. Purchases and sales are continuing, but the problem that you face is that as the interest rates go up, because inflation goes up, buyers are being priced out of the market. Just recently, over the last, this month, I would say, the price points are starting to drop. Even in Long Island, which was very hot due to COVID, the price points are dropping because the buyers no longer have the purchasing power to afford the house, right? We have a transaction on a new construction condo here in Long Island City, excuse me, where the buyer told me if the interest rates go up, he would be unable to afford the property. So we had to put a time cap on the transaction. And if he couldn't buy the property within a certain time period, we could get our deposit back because he wasn't going to be able to afford it if the interest rates keep rising as they're doing. In the $1 to $5 million market, the price points are dropping considerably. And again, new construction condos in the 5 boroughs are starting to drop because there's a vast number of units available. So there are good deals on new construction condos if you can lock in your rate, at a reasonable rate, and you have the cash.
Great. So tell us more about your work as a real estate attorney. In addition to protecting your clients, protecting buyers from unwary or unscrupulous parties, and also investigating the market rates, what have you done for your attorneys in terms of a real estate attorney point of view?
What do we do for the clients as a real estate attorney?
Yes. Well, what do you do, and what do clients expect of you when they choose you to be their attorneys? I
think the clients expect the world, right? To be available Monday through Sunday, 24 hours a day, Christmas, right? Easter, they don't mind or care. I did a contract signing on 4th of July. So I think their expectations are essentially that particularly first-time home buyers, because they're new and they're nervous, they always have a lot of questions and they want you to be accessible, right? And again, just one question at 7 in the morning, just one question, right? But for us, really, we shepherd them through the process, right? If they're a buyer, our job is to protect their down payment because the money they put down when they sign the contract is what they can lose. And on the seller side, it's really to make sure that the transaction goes smoothly and they get their funds at the closing, right? That's really what we want to do. But I think, just like any business, it's customer service, right? You're an immigration attorney and you're fielding questions all day and responding to emails, texts, WhatsApp, WeChat, whatever. It's the same with real estate attorneys. Real estate doesn't sleep, right? They're doing open houses on the weekend. They're offers being accepted at 10 o'clock at night. So it's really a customer service business, right? And I think nowadays in America, we're all in customer service, right? Whether we work at Starbucks or we're an attorney or we're a doctor, it's just kind of where we are now. And I think clients just want to have that accessibility.
I see. Yes. So, I mean, from my understanding, you've represented an entire country by yourself. So tell us more about that.
I wouldn't say by myself, but yes, I was lucky enough to represent a country in a purchase of a community center here in Queens for their people, which was really nice. It was a small country, right? But it still was a country. And it was an interesting experience because I spent a lot of time at the consulate dealing with the ambassador. And that country actually has a king, which is kind of interesting. So the king was funding the project, and we were dealing with the community group here in Queens. It was actually in Elmhurst as well. And we were dealing with the ambassador. She was a very nice lady, but she was very tough, and you're sitting there in her office and it must be 1,000 degrees. I'm sweating after every question. And I'm like, oh my Lord, but we actually did a good job. It wasn't just me, it was the whole team. We used a really good title company called Redstone Title that had the pedigree to do an international transaction like that, because it wasn't a standard cookie cutter residential purchase. It was, dealing with with the State Department, getting sign-offs from the consulate, from the State Department. We had to go through a lot of hoops in order to have a country buy a piece of property in New York. So we had a good team. And it's funny because We represent individuals who, are buying a $80,000 co-op in the Bronx, and then we got to represent a country that was buying a commercial property, for their people. So we have a good array of clientele, which is kind of nice.
Awesome. That's really interesting to hear, because not a lot of people have that experience with representing an entire country or representing, a king. So that's great that.
I know, it's so wild, right? It's like, how many people have you run into that's represented them? It wasn't a big country, like I said. It wasn't like I got to represent the U.S., but it was still a country. And what was kind of interesting was I was at dinner in Manhattan, and one of the people that worked at the restaurant heard my name, and she goes, "Oh, you're Ryan Walsh." And I was like, "Oh no," right? Whenever you hear that, it's like, "Oh no, there's a problem," right? But she goes, "Yeah," and then she goes, "I'm from X country. You helped us, buy this facility." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing," right? So, yeah, it's nice. Sometimes you get you get a good feeling when you help people, which is nice.
Great. Well, let's talk about we talked about immigrants, we talked about international individuals and countries. What about those people who don't have any papers here in the U.S. and they want to buy property, because property can be transmitted to their heirs? It's a great investment option. So what about people who don't have papers or are here illegally? Are they still entitled to buy property?
If they're here illegally?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't run into anyone who is illegal, but we have a lot of foreign nationals that buy property, and they don't have a social, right, or a green card. Say they live in China and they're just buying a condo cash. Excuse me. They can buy a property. If hypothetically a person was not legal, they could potentially buy a property too, right? Again, you don't need a social to buy a property. The issue that you're going to face if you're a foreign national or you're illegal is when you go to sell, because there's a law that says that if you're not an American citizen, let's say, or a green card holder, you have to hold back 15% of the purchase price and give it to the IRS to ensure that you pay your taxes, right, on the transfer. So that may be a little bit of a pickle for someone who's not here legally, and they go to sell a place. Say they go to sell a property. But if they want to buy it, they want to have their family, that's fine. I haven't seen an issue with that.
Can they still get a loan from buying if they don't have
they get a mortgage
cash up front?
I think I'm not a lender, and the thing is, there's a wide variety of programs out there. There's programs where you have to show your income and assets and your X, Y, and Z, and there's other programs out there that I'm hearing about where just essentially come up with the 20% down, right? We'll give you the balance, right? So I think there's a wide range of loan products and services that whether or not you have the right documentation to be in the U.S., you could still get a mortgage, right? It may not be an FHA loan or a Sony Mae loan, but it may be just a conventional mortgage where it's no docs, right? It's a no doc loan. And those products are actually offered by a lot of mortgage brokers or mortgage banks in New York.
I see. And would these people, if they have those kinds of questions, be able to come to you so that you can shepherdize them through the process of not getting ripped off? If, for example, they just have 20% cash and they found a lender, would you be able to help them with closing a deal of that sort of?
Sure. The thing is, if a client doesn't feel comfortable with the lender, they don't feel comfortable with, the home inspector, the realtor, or whatnot, we can always refer them to someone that we feel is reputable, right? And there's different lenders for different situations or different people, but we work with a variety of lenders, and we always work with good loan officers that are not there to take advantage of the client, right? The idea is to do right by the client, have a good reputation, because we've been doing it for so long. We don't want to harm our reputation. We don't want to steal your $20 and then we have an issue. We've been pretty blessed in the sense that we haven't had any real issues with clients. We've always tried to do right by the client. And when we refer them to somebody, we refer them to people that we've worked with that we think are going to do right by them, you know. But it's like with anything, right? We had a client that came in yesterday to pick up his balance check, and he thought it was supposed to be more than the check that he received. And we kept showing him that, well, you know, last week you received $2 and today you receive $8. That's the $10, right? And he was like, no, you said $10. And we're like, yes, you received $2 last week and $8 this week. That's $10. And literally it was myself and another attorney in the office for about 45 minutes going, okay, $2 plus $8 is $10, right? And I think by the end he got it, but, you know, he would have liked to get another $10. You know, so, you gotta, you know, it's never perfect, right? Real estate is never smooth, right? It's, you know, because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with the lenders, they have to appraise the property. There's a title report that needs to be ordered. There could be issues with the title. So there's never a smooth process, right? You know, there's always bumps in the road. And if you have reasonable expectations, you're not going to be disappointed or you're not going to be always upset. But if you think that, you know, you make an offer on a property and then you close the next day, that's not how it works in New York. You know, it's a journey, and you have to understand the journey, you know.
I see. Well, that being said, I think we're at the end of our show. So, Ryan, if there's anything else you would like to add, please feel free to do so. If not, we'll be closing up.
No, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for having me as your guest. You know, I appreciate it. You know, look forward to seeing you soon and your child. And to your audience, thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And I encourage everyone looking to buy a house to contact Mr. Walsh. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a great day.
Bye.
You've been listening to Lawyers for Immigrants with your host, Yifei He. You can find prior episodes on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and at www.yifeihelaw.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others.